Does fashion influence films or do films influence fashion?
I think films influence everything.
Yeah.
In this country at least,
In
right?
this country, they do, and it's probably a thing of the West where you have both sort of going hand in hand. But I think fashion somehow, and I'm talking about the current scenario and the current with the boom of OTT and everything. I think fashion has become a little bit more of a front runner only because it's kind of like a mirror to society.
I think as time elapses, whichever medium is the most strongest is going to slowly and steadily change the way we consume fashion. Fashion was very much a part of Bollywood, only that we were creating it differently. Right. And of course, the best of costume designers were exposed to fashion all over the world, and they were bringing it to us, and we didn't even know about it because we never had those books to read, we never had runway shows to watch. So how we were watching their interpretation of fashion was through movies. And then the moment technology moved and we had exposure of everything that's going on in any part of the world, slowly that kind of became together, and now it's just, it's exploded, I think. There's too much.
To be honest, we're not really inventing the next pair of jeans. I'll tell you that, I'm very honest about that. Nor am I inventing the next white shirt, which everyone's going to wear. There is a template. When it comes to bridal, there's a template. When it comes to ready-to-wear, there's a template. When it comes to India, I mean, the A-line kurta is the template, whether we like it or not, And we can say fashion this and trend that and this forecast and that, but at the end of the day, the A-line kurta with the legging is the A-line kurta with the legging. It's like couture for this country. We love it, and Indians love it.
How much of what you're wearing, what your character's appearance is going to be, and I largely mean costume, becomes your in for understanding that person that you're going to be playing? Is costume a big part of helping you become that character?
So nowadays how I do it is I first try to figure out what I think the character is, and then I try to figure out how would this character dress. And then there are, there are these points where we talk as much as possible to the costume designer on board that project to actually create something that is what the character we think would be. And somewhere, it has to feel natural to me as well. If I'm playing that part, I have to make it my own. And I have always firmly believed the moment you walk onto a set with that costume and whatever that get-up is, I think if you get it right, I think 50% of the battle is won.
Namrata, can you talk about sort of costume in film, in modern Hindi cinema, and how that's evolved? I mean, you pointed out, and quite rightly so to me yesterday when we were chatting, that the first Indian to ever win an Oscar was Bhanu Athaya and you attended her exhibition of her archives recently. Can you talk about the evolution of sort of costume in Hindi cinema over the last maybe 25 years, if you like, or longer?
I think it's come into its own, in a very strong credit. It's really part of what is. I mean, Bhanu, unfortunately, I don't even know how many films she must have done. Hundreds of films that she styled, and for everybody. But she was forgotten. She was pre-internet. By the time the internet came about and by social media came about, by the time the fashion industry was sort of born in India, Bhanu was retired, I think her last film was Swadesh, yes. Right? And but now I see so many people who want to style for films, like Riya Kapoor, who I'm a big fan of. I mean, she's a great producer and a director and a fabulous stylist too. She has a film coming out, and all her films sort of are so playful with their costumes as well. And I cannot imagine you giving up Ram Leela. I would have done it for you and taken your name. I can't. I mean, I think it's one of the most beautifully styled films, Bansali's Ram Leela. For me, also being a fashion sort of writer, it's such an important part of a movie experience to sort of enjoy what the characters are wearing, enjoy how the film is styled. And I find myself enjoying a lot of cinema that may not be a great story in terms of, conflict or resolution or whatever. But if the movie stars look good, if the actors look good, I'm happy, and I don't think it's polite to sort of tell you which these films are, but, so many films today take their costumes so seriously as much as they do their cinematography or the lighting or something like that. And I think that's really integral because, I think styling a film is now a prism, costume is now a prism. It's a new way to sort of approach cinema as technically superior cinema. And I was talking to Vidhu Vinod Chopra a couple of months ago, just before his amazing 12th Fail release. And, we were, of course, talking about costume and how he's done it. And most of his characters are very, dressed as normal people are. And then there was a film that he made, one of his oldest films. I don't know if you remember it, Khamosh. Yes. It's not available digitally, but I recently saw it at a film club. And not only were the actors at the time wearing their own clothes, Tamanna would be very happy, but they also had their own names, like Soni Razdan plays Soni Razdan, and Shabana Azmi plays Shabana Azmi, and I think Amol Palekar is also himself. Of course, he's a murderer, which is unimaginable. But imagine from that to where we are today, to the glamour that costume sort of brings cinema, to the realism it sort of brings it. And I think actors today are not just, actors, they're also public figures in the age of Instagram. Deepika Padukone is worth 500 crores, and I don't think all of that is from, her acting. A lot of it is, from her campaigns. So I think looking good and dressing for the part every day, whether you're going to the gym or the airport, is such an integral part to the movie Stardom today.
But is it exhausting, Tamanna?
Well, it's exhausting if you don't enjoy it.
Right.
So the idea is to start doing things that you enjoy. The moment you start enjoying, like for me, there was a phase where I wanted to dress to the airport. But then there are days I don't want to dress to the airport. There are days I want to wear just a kurta and go, and I do that. Because I feel like your mood is actually a great way to even get inspired. Because I feel like sometimes when you don't have anything in mind, sometimes you come up with something really creative. And I have many a times discovered things when I've been in a lot of constraint. And I feel like creativity comes out of constraint when you don't have the things you need.
Tamanna, what happens when you're in, I don't want to use the word conflict, that's a strong word, but in disagreement, the way that you see this character might be a little bit different from the way that your director does or your costume designer does, and the disagreement is over the visual element of how this character is going to look. What tends to happen? You also bring years of experience as an actor. Is your voice heard as an actor?
I think today, yes. But what I like to do, and I love doing this with my team, and as you know, Rajiv, films will always be teamwork. Whether we like it or not, it's not one person's perspective that's being put out there. It's one person's vision, yes, but there are lots of different perspectives, energies that come together to create someone's vision. So I think today's filmmakers are a lot more, aware that an actor is actually going to make that character his own. So I do have times when there's a disagreement, and whenever there is a disagreement, what I actually do is, like for example, the skin tone that I have. Recently I was supposed to do a look test for something, and they wanted me to try a warmer skin tone, which I was very happy to explore because I've done it in films like Bahubali, I've done it in films, a Tamil film called Devi, so I've done it a bunch of times. And because I do believe one must fully transform when a character demands it. But even in just in the span of Bahubali is 7-8 years ago? The digital, the way the digital film camera is capturing us today, it can literally see the pores of our skin. So if I am wearing something that's like a layer on my skin, it's going to look synthetic. It's going to look like makeup, and that's a layer between the audience and me. And that was how I felt about it. But I truly feel because this is a teamwork, we need to make sure that everybody feels the same as we feel.
Right.
So I went through the process of applying that to then it was my director himself was like, I don't think this works. So I feel like in films, we either convince the other person or we get convinced.
As several Indian actors make their pole debut this election season, we look at the cinema stars who forayed into politics. Check out interesting facts about Bollywood's latest offering crew and trace the fashion evolution of the flirty beau. All this and much more with me, Alison Lagrange, on WION E-Club at these times.
On Inside South Asia, 3 attacks in a week. A suicide blast in Pakistan kills 5 Chinese nationals. The string of attacks raises questions about future of Beijing projects. A boat carrying Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh to Indonesia sinks. When will the ordeal for Rohingya end? If you want to scale the heights of Mount Everest this season, be prepared to trek down with your poop. We tell you all about the new rule at the world's highest peak. All of this and a lot more on Inside South Asia.
Masaba, when you're dressing an actor, it could be for a public appearance, it could be for a campaign. Again, are you trying to find what in your sort of atelier suits their personality? Are you trying to get them to be a little brave? What is the push and pull when you're working with actors?
Well, I think because there's stylists for pretty much every actor today, I think it first starts with their vision of, the actor that they're styling. And then you sort of go down into, okay, what event are they going to? And are they going to be comfortable in this for many hours? Or is this something that's just going to be a quick photo op and out, I think it really depends on that. What I do find is that sometimes there is a gap between what the stylist and the actor want, And I always go the extra mile in the way that I say, I think you should give this a shot, because an actor could be looking a certain way. Or sometimes when I'm designing a piece, just recently I was designing something and I just said, this has Alia written all over it. And I just thought of that. And I don't really dress Alia that much. So I think what happens is that you always find pieces that suit a certain personality, but there is that, first there's the stylist assistant, and then there is the stylist, and there's a brief. So I think that's how it typically works. Having said that, I think an actor does have a mind of their own. Like even with Tamanna, you know, every time I've had a conversation with her, she's always very clear about the color. For example, like she's very clear about what color washes her out and what makes her skin really, you know, come out in that sense. So I think they always know. Sonam is somebody like that as well, who really just knows exactly what she'd like to wear. But there's some people who are very, very happy to just go with what the stylist will say. But yeah, there are pieces that I see and I just think that, oh, this has this actor written all over it. And I actually sometimes just keep it away and I don't give it to anyone else because I think it'll do that person justice. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. But I think that, yes, actors, every actor in our country does have a very strong personality, straight from the top all the way down. And I think that they all know their bodies so well. You know, even someone like Kareena really understands her body and its strengths, its weaknesses, everything. And she's very happy to be clear about that. Yeah.
Namrata, let's talk about the red carpet, which has become a multi-million-dollar industry in itself, hasn't it? From the time that we were sort of cub journalists. Tell us what the sort of the pressure and the importance of the red carpet today, and then we'll ask them, you know, the pressure that's on them to light up the red carpet.
I mean, I'm sure there is for movie stars, right? I mean, even if it's somebody's private party or a Diwali party, and you know everybody's invited, you'll see everyone having the stylist come home, getting a photographer home, doing the hair and makeup, getting the screen put out. Everything is now for the gram, right? So, and that costs money too. So, you know, there was this actor, I can't remember her name, but she put together, it was during Mami, just how difficult and expensive it was to sort of compete in that red carpet game. It's not for everybody because it can just cost $1 lakh for just a photo or maybe
That was actually
anything.
an incredible post by Rajshri Deshpande, who
There you
spoke
go.
in detail about the pressure that it puts on people that don't want to do it or can't afford to play that game because they don't think it's that important to what their ambition is.
Yeah, and I ran into her the night when, you know, she was dressed up, and I mean, my heart really broke because we never think of it. You know, we also, you know, as journalists, we're also gawkers. You know, we're voyeurs. We want more. We want to be entertained. We're also cinema goers, and you know, let's face it, in India, cinema is like the biggest escape that we have. You know, half our country probably skips lunch to buy a movie ticket and go for a matinee show. So it's that important to us. But I see the pressures of the red carpet today. I see that, you know, India has multiple luxury brands sort of coming in who want a piece of the Bollywood pie, because if they don't have it, they don't have anything. I mean, there's no discerning customer, none of that. I see that a lot of Indian brands who we now call homegrown luxury, I mean, they're coming into their own so beautifully. I mean, look at what Masaba's built, you know, in very few years. And I think all of that sort of stems from this synthesis between Bollywood and fashion, between what the red carpet and how powerful it can be, you know, how game-changing it can be for somebody's career or somebody's brand or, you know, just image management. And, I mean, it's a whole industry. It's a whole industry. I mean, people think Indian fashion is all bridal. It's completely, you know, the needle is pretty much shifting towards celebrity dressing and the red carpet.
Saba?
You know, honestly, Rajiv, I think do what you can with, you know, with what your means are. I really believe that. And I think do it more from a point of, like, I think it's going to be hell for everyone's mental health to begin with. To see or to match up to the standard of looking a certain way and having a certain body and having certain hair makeup and jewels all the time. I think it's, I worry about the next generation because I think that they have this, they're only thinking of how do I, you know, have the money to get to this. It's scary. You know, how do I live up to this image that I have created for myself on social media? Do it like a job, detach yourself from it. And don't get emotional about it.
If anyone has questions, you'll raise your hand and we'll send a mic to you. The gentleman there.
Now, as an actor, Tamanna, do you think twice before you pick a garment from a designer to understand, or do you do a little bit of a background check to know how this garment is produced? Or the animals are slaughtered? Or is it coming from a sweatshop? How much conscious are you about that? And also, Masaba, how conscious are you about your production when it comes to sustainability and ethical fashion?
For me, I think now I've made it a point that I have the most easiest wardrobe to manage. I've kept my personal clothing to the bare minimum because I realize I like to wear only 4 pants. And I keep rotating that like everybody else. And but for my work, yes, I keep needing different kind of clothes, and as and when I procure what I need. But in today's times, I've actually been interacting with a few designers closely, from Masaba to Rahul Mishra to Gaurav Gupta, Neeta Lulla, and I feel like they are people who have been so instrumental in putting out India on the world map. And I make sure, like when I was talking to Rahul, his previous collection itself was inspired by nature. So, and the superheroes were insects, for example, which I thought was a beautiful thought and idea. And just to know his idea of sustainability. So I'm actually educating myself while I'm also making choices where I take in only what I need and not excessively splurge on things that I don't think I can reuse. Because I feel like it can never be enough. So it's best to minimize what you can actually use, and I'm being conscious of that.
I think for me, when you're running a fashion label, to be very honest, it's very difficult to be 100% sustainable. If you see some of the largest brands in the world, including H&M, have pledged to be sustainable many, many years down the line. I'm talking about maybe a decade later. It's because, one, it requires money, and two, it is something that is, the thing is, not being sustainable has actually penetrated so deep into fashion, into society, that we have to undo a lot of that. And that takes a lot longer than actually saying, I'd like to be a sustainable label. At a very basic level, as a brand, we make small changes every day to how we look at sustainability, and fashion is one of the biggest polluters of the world. We all know that. There's no denying that. Having said that, when we have all the waste fabric that's left over after a garment is made, we call it katran, it's just pieces of fabric that you can't really do anything with. We started to make little scrunchies and hairbands, so we make little scarves. We started to make masks during COVID. Out of that fabric, we started to also make sure there was a system of that waste to be picked up and recycled and made into something else. That was one. A couple of years back, I had the opportunity to tie up with the United Nations Environment Program, where we actually worked with them closely to understand single-use plastic, which is actually the single biggest polluter worldwide. And it's nothing. It's the plastic bag you use to go to the vegetable market to buy sabzi and fruit and whatever. And it's, the little things that you'd use every day, and you just quickly discard it. So today, for example, even as a human being, when I'm going to a Nature's Basket to, stock up the house, I'm not taking a plastic bag. I'm consciously saying I will take the same muslin tote that I've been using over and over again. Having said that, coming back to the UNEP collection that we did, we made a collection of garments that, so for example, the sleeve could be zipped off and it would fold up and it would become a carry bag, So we had about, I think, a 20-25 piece collection that we did with them in collaboration to educate people about how single-use plastic is the biggest polluter. There are many different types of fabrics which are actually not as big polluters of the world as that. Another thing I'll tell you is in the beauty industry, there's a lot of noise about the cartons that go, that are shipped when you're buying a single lipstick. For example, you buy a lipstick that big and the carton is that big. Or you buy a nail paint that's that much and you have a carton that's that much. People can say things over and over again about how it shouldn't be that big a box and should be smaller, etc., etc. The fact of the matter is, if you don't have that big a box and you don't fill it up with bubble wrap and all these things to pad it, your product will come to you damaged. And we haven't reached there yet where we have a sustainable enough option to give you packaging that won't damage that product in a smaller box, for example. We're getting there. We make changes every day. All of my beauty products are, recyclable, the packaging. So I think in small ways we make amends, but to be 100% sustainable, it's a long journey, and it's one that we've all embarked on. But I see that it's not something that can happen in the near future, and I don't want to just say it because it's a cool marketing gimmick, but it's a long journey, and we've taken it on, and as and when we have the capital, as and when we have the means, and we have the acceptance from consumers, we will take it head on.
As several Indian actors make their poll debut this election season, we look at the cinema stars who forayed into politics. Check out interesting facts about Bollywood's latest offering crew and trace the fashion evolution of the flirty beau. All this and much more with me, Alison Lagrange, on WION E-Club at these times.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening, as we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Vielleicht nur